Why are we complaining about the price of a luxury novelty service?
And who gets to dictate that, I just think ultimately I just believe that the machine was broke. It was set up wrong from the start. I think it was set up by the big companies at the beginning. Save a buck here and there where we can. Why do we have to be the ones that suffer for it? Why do we have to be the ones that care so much about pleasing other people?
Yeah, so you absolutely do. You were just never taught how to set boundaries and that it was okay to set boundaries.
You're almost doing somebody an injustice by charging them a little amount, because when they come to your course or they come to whatever, they're not going to be paying attention. There's no skin in the game. If there's no skin in the game, there's going to be no value there. Right, we're back, and we're back off the back of a very interesting week. This episode is one that will be highly anticipated given the response of my stories during the week, and it's about pricing, salary, what we're worth as barbers, where that all came from, and how it can be potentially changed. So if you didn't see it during the week, on my personal Instagram, I just went on a bit of a rant. And the rant was based around my research into the average wage, or average salary, I should say, of an Australian in 2021. And the figure that I saw popping up was somewhere between $96,000 to $100,000. And I know, for the most part, from most of the hair professionals that I know and have encountered are almost making 50% less than that, I would say.
It's quite shocking, isn't it?
And that's before tax. So that's what has inspired this conversation, and we want to get into a bit more depth on it. So I guess a good point, or a good place to start would be, how did it actually get to this point anyway?
Let's start on that number to start with. What? Because I think we were both quite surprised at that number, weren't we? The average.
Yeah, look, I guess for me it's something that I never really actually looked up or looked into. It's just I was ignorant to it. I wasn't conscious of it.
Yeah.
And if you're not conscious, you're ignorant.
Yeah.
So I was just ignorant to it. I did not know. And it actually made me feel a bit upset, because I personally, on a personal level, do not feel less than average. And I think that's the main point I was trying to get across in that story, was why are we settling for less than average, especially in something that's not necessary?
Yep. Exactly.
So yeah, how did it make you feel? Did you really look into that much? Look, there's different types of averages. There's the mean average, and there's the kind of median. But people were saying, oh, it's closer to the median, but even the median is like 20 grand more. So then what are we? What are we, just the shit on the bottom of people's shoes? What the fuck?
That's what we kind of get.
That's the feeling I don't know.
Yeah.
I often feel disrespected by my clients in terms of price, asking for discounts, this and that. Fuck all that, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen anywhere else, and we don't treat people that way.
No, I think us being in the service industry, I think we're probably the best at not doing that. Rarely do I go anywhere and ever complain about the price or anything like that.
No.
And that's 100% the truth. I don't. I hate doing it. Yeah, I think for me, fundamentally, I understand that everybody's out here trying to make a living. And I don't know. I don't know how you can start complaining about the price of things. I mean, I've always gone by the idea of if you can't afford it, just don't get it. Don't have it. You don't buy the thing. If it's not essential to survival or life, which contrary to popular belief, as I said in a previous podcast, I don't think hair is essential to the survival of us human beings, especially in the times like we're in right now. Why are we complaining about the price of a luxury novelty service?
And who gets to dictate that,
And who says what the discount is? And something a good friend of ours once said, you need to, whoever's on the other side of that asking for the discount or complaining about the price, maybe you need to ask, okay, well, what do you think the price should be? Or what do you think I should get paid? Because then when you flip it, it takes a real asshole to like, you know, low blow you. You know,
Who's going to say $20 now?
yeah, who's gonna go? All right, I'll charge $70 for a haircut in the salon, and they'll go 30. You go, we got a real dick, aren't you?
Yeah.
See you later. Like, how do you expect me to live any kind of good, any kind of quality of life? You know.
Well, that's it. And where are the margins there? Like, where,
Yeah.
you know, if you're looking at running a shop, you know, and a lot of shop owners will know that. And this is another thing too, right? Me and Lee, we don't own our own shops, but we've been around them our whole lives. Like, my mom has a shop for longer than I'm alive, you know, and I've seen her go through the struggle, and she still can't put her prices up because she feels like afraid to.
Yeah, and you reckon that's all fear based?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fear of losing clients or fear of this.
Yeah.
But it's not, and an important thing that I said on my story the other day was, it's not the shop owner's fault. And it's not our boss's fault. And that's what one thing we need to really hone in on here, because I think there could have been a bit of sensitivity around that topic the other day.
Yeah. I think that held power though in what you said. It's definitely not. It can't be the boss's fault.
No.
It's like conversation we had earlier about different industries. I wonder how other industries feel about this. You know, and a lot of industries, that people that we sort of rub shoulders with are either corporate or government funded. Well, their money situations are way different to ours. We can only take home essentially what we make. You know, and if you want to get paid more, or you feel like you need more money, or you should deserve more money, unfortunately in our industry we have to somehow come up with a way to make more money.
Yeah.
Whereas in a corporate world that might not be the case, or in a government funded world, other service industries which are government funded, that's not the case, because they'll go, all right, I'll walk in and say, I want a pay rise. I think I deserve it. And they'll look at the budget and go, does it fit? Yeah, you've worked hard. All right, yeah, have it.
Yeah.
With nothing extra done. Okay, you might come to terms, and they might be like, okay, well, Lee, you need to do this year or this month or whatever. But it's not the same as like us. I mean, if we want even $1,000 pay increase per year, you got to find a way to make that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
There's a simple solution in my opinion, but we'll get into a little bit further depth on, I guess, the history of how it got to this point. But the solution is we all have to value ourselves more. We have to know our worth. We have to provide an excellent service, not just an excellent haircut, an excellent experience, in my opinion, so that people can place a value to what you're doing. Because otherwise, how can they do it?
because it comes back to understanding the industry and the world that you're in. Like, if you understand that you are in a luxury novelty service industry, which we are, why should that be cheap? Because it does not, and I will argue people this to the day I die, it doesn't go towards human existence and health and longevity and the survival of us. It just doesn't. But that doesn't mean doesn't mean it's wrong, and it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. We just need to see the value in that and the privilege in that. There's so much privilege in that. Why are those things cheap, and why are we doing it to ourselves?
But I think it comes back to the whole competition thing. Like, I think innately in our industry, like, people are just set up with a competition type mindset. We just want to undercut that person down the road. We want to have the clients. It's all greed.
Where do you think that comes from, though?
I just think ultimately I just believe that the machine was broke. It was set up wrong from the start.
I also think that too.
I think it was set up by the big companies at the beginning.
And I can't help but think, you know, for the likes of myself, coming from just a working class place, that's just the attitude of people. Oh, it's every man for himself.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's trying to, I want to be
Step on your toes.
I want to step on that guy. Don't help that guy.
It's animalistic.
It is. And like, we need to get out of that mindset. We need to switch to the abundance mindset.
Yeah, there's been a couple of experiences in my career.
We absolutely have to switch out of that.
There's been a few experiences that we've had, and we won't get into that. It's too detailed and sensitive to get into, but where I've witnessed people undercut themselves first and then get a lot of other people undercut as well.
Yep.
And it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense, because ultimately, like I said in my story the other day, you're fucking yourself in the end.
Yep.
Because you're not going to be able to charge more than, and like, precedent is a big thing, you know, and I think setting that precedent with people and educating our clients to understand the value of what we're doing, I think that's one thing that we don't do enough. And what's going to be really interesting about when we release the platform, because people don't know that we're going to do this yet, but fuck it, I'm going to say it anyway. We're doing a consumer course for the client, not necessarily for professionals. I think professionals can also buy it and get a lot of value out of it to understand it from both sides, but for the client and how maybe the client's mindset needs to change. How can we expect anything to change if we don't educate the clients?
Well, yeah, exactly.
As a whole.
How's it ever going to change
me and you talking about it?
If we just keep mingling between ourselves?
And me and you talking about it's one thing, right? Like, we can have as much conversation as we want about it, but getting it out to a wider audience, and clearly by the response that I got in my story, it really is a pain point for people. Yeah. Because people don't feel their worth. Why should we feel less worthy? Why should we feel less worthy when arguably looking at other trades, and this is a big issue now that we have in the industry as well, just to go off on a little side tangent about this, but there's clearly a staffing issue happening. People can't attract staff to the industry. Why is that? In my opinion, it's very simple. Why would anybody want to come into the industry with a lack of education on what you can actually do? First of all, you're not just going to be behind the chair. There is other options. Being behind the chair is totally fine. You don't have to be. You don't have to go and do the other options. If you're fine, if you're happy doing that, then fair enough. But think about a young Australian, just finished school, wants to have a good life with his mates, whatever, or her mates, and they're like, what am I going to do? Am I going to be a hairdressing or barbering apprentice and get paid dog shit for 4 years, and then still get paid dog shit when I get qualified, or am I going to do like plumbing or become an electrician or something else where you get paid not great for your apprenticeship, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel for us? Yes, if you have the expansive mindset that we have, that you can do other things in the industry, and yes, you can. You most definitely can. Do the people at the top teach that to the kids coming up these days? No, they don't. Because why? Fear. Because they think they need to protect their own little sphere, because they, like people like us, right? If we were to say not ever share any knowledge or wisdom about how to teach or how to do this or how to do that, just to keep our own money to ourselves, or like our knowledge to ourselves, what is that actually going to do in the long run?
Nothing. Like,
there's another interesting way of putting it too. It's like, yes, you can get into doing education and you can charge $1,000 a day for an education session for conversation's sake, but you can't do that if you're doing $10 haircuts.
No, doesn't make sense.
So like, at a certain point, there's levels to everything, right? And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of factors that come into pricing point. Yeah. You have experience, knowledge, skills. They're like fundamentals. You also have location.
Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of people don't understand either. Like, a lot of people that come to our shop, they've got no idea how much it actually costs to keep those doors open. So expensive to have CBD rentals.
But we're in a different landscape now. And this is another interesting side point, but we're moving into a different world. Like, does it really matter where you are anymore?
No.
Like, that's another thing. Does it really matter where you are? If people want your product, they'll buy it.
That's the mind shift that I think we need to have in terms of everything. I think we need to go back. Like, I would love to see everybody just dig back into their value perception. Let's get back to a point of like, right, let's reevaluate what's really valuable and why. And then we need to look at, okay, the standpoint of, yep, there's a reason people don't want to do hair, because it doesn't pay a lot of money. All right, we're all looking at the world in terms of money and products right now. So exactly like you said, it doesn't matter where you are. I have a product, so I should be paid for it. It's like, we need to look at it like that. Why is one person $10? Why is one person $50 when you're given a similar product? You know, regional or CBD or whatever. So I think a big thing that changes the price, like we just said right then, is location. But that can also change because it's like what's her name, Sophia Hilton from Not Another Salon. I heard her speak on a podcast, and she said, I would never have got a high street shop front if I knew what was coming. She said, if I knew the power of like social media and how to market my product, what I have, she was like, I could have saved myself bloody, 50 grand a year, I don't know, whatever it was a massive number, what she blows on rent every year. And, you know, one of the most successful stylists of the social media time right now. And so I think that's what we need to understand as well. Does that devalue us or does that increase our value? That's what we need to look at.
I think it comes primarily down to a skill, like the skill initially, right? Your own personal skill. And then look, there's certain skills that aren't being taught at trade school that we're in an old system. It's the same as the education system for kids just in general. It's operating for a different landscape. It's creating workers for the workforce. It's putting bums on seats. It's just...
Well, it's filling roles. You know, we've heard this come up in conversation a lot lately. It's filling roles. Like, that's not... I don't think we should look at our industry like that. I really don't. We're not just a roles-filling thing, you know? We're not... this is not a dig on other industries, but we're not a factory. You know, I was going to dip into what you were saying earlier. It's like you were talking about people become electricians or plumbers, this... Mate, I know people that work at factories who earn $30 to $40 an hour, and all they're doing is sticking bloody sticks in lollipops. That's all they're doing. $30 to $40 friggin' dollars an hour. Why? Because it's mind-numbing work, and nobody really wants to do it. But there's a massive corporation built around that, and they just need people to do it. So they'll funnel the money in there. So why do we think? Why do we think all this stuff's happening? Well, I think there's a lot of that involved. But getting back to how do we change this? Where do we go from here? And not just filling roles. I think there's a big problem there because this industry in particular requires a level of passion and a level of inspiration for hair. Because again, like I always say, we have the most ridiculous job in the world. And I don't mean that in a sense of like, it's stupid what we do. It's just, if you really think about what we're doing, you know, it's quite an obscure thing. You need a level of passion and interest to do this job. Just to train people up to fill the holes and fill the roles is, I think it's an injustice to the industry. And we're going to water ourselves down. We're going to water the whole industry down, and then all of our value is going to go down. Because we take away the luxury and the privilege that it is to get a haircut to the standard and the level that we do it.
But it's also appreciating somebody's time. Like, you know, it's just appreciating somebody else's time.
It is.
And I think, look, we're all the star in our own movies, you know, like we're all the star in our own movies, and like that's the problem. Like, people want to try and save a buck here and there where we can. Like, why do we have to be the ones that suffer for it? You know, why do we have to be the ones that care so much about pleasing other people? And not ultimately looking after ourselves. Like, if you keep just pleasing other people, then you're never going to get out of your own way. Essentially, we always talk about it, like getting out of your own way. Now, look, there has to be a certain level of experience and of value that you have to be able to offer through your skills, through your knowledge, and through your expertise and your experience over the years. Like, obviously, the more experience you have, the more you could be perceived to charge, but clearly not. Some of the comments that we got back, and we will share some of them in a minute, actually. We'll pull some of the comments up and I'll read them, because I think they'd be good points for us to kind of spin off of and address. But clearly not, you know, like we're working in a broken system, in my opinion, that has been set up to benefit the major salons, the big brands who franchised all of their shops and just literally turned them into factories.
They just turned it into a numbers game.
They used the business model of the factory, and they turned it into a numbers game. And ultimately what they did then is they filtered down all of the boutiques' prices
Yeah.
Like Area Studio, for example, you could classify as a boutique salon. But how can we charge what we want to charge? Now, look, I think going forward, we need to just take some more risks. You know, like, I think commercialism and the bigger brands have just filtered our industry down, and we've just accepted it, essentially. I also think it comes from the psychology of being an apprentice, because you're also, as an apprentice, operating in a broken system. So listening to the people above you telling you what to do and this and this and this and treating you like a piece of shit is not the answer. I never did an apprenticeship.
No, and that's what I've always admired about you.
I never did one, and I'm so glad that I didn't, because now I have this perspective.
Yeah. We said that in like podcast. I think I said that about in podcast 2 or something. Like, that's something about your journey. You come in with a different perspective, an unbiased perspective, but also a different perspective, almost like a growth mindset from day one. You know, and what a gift.
Yeah, because it's like the thing I see the most in people when it comes to raising their prices is like, oh no, I can't. Why? That's just the way it works. But it's not just the way it works.
No.
You know, what if you think about it from another angle, or a different industry, or, you know, just time is time. You know, like, I've been trying to explain to my clients these days, like, I'm a lot more than just a barber now. Like, my time is very valuable, and how I choose to spend it is up to me.
Yeah.
A time of my hour, an hour of my time, I should say, that I choose to spend doing nothing. Just because I'm free doesn't mean I'm available.
I love it when people do that to us.
Just because I'm free doesn't mean I'm available to cut your hair. It's like, I'm sorry, as much as I'd love to spend time with you, but like, where else can my time be best spent? You know, like, I've had to break up with a lot of my clients, and this is where the risk taking comes in.
Yeah.
We have to be willing for something to change. You have to be willing to give away something. If you want to change the way you're going with the direction of your business, you have to be able to accept the loss.
And that's not easy.
But it won't be a loss. It'll be a short-term loss.
Exactly. And it's not easy. And it doesn't even need to be a loss. It's just, I would change the word, it's just painful. You know, there's that
growing pains.
Initial
growing
pains.
Exactly. Mark said that, like, in the messages a minute ago. There's growing pains.
And that, I'm trying to think of this all from like a psychological perspective. That's what stops people. Is it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to do that. And I think our industry in particular is built a lot on that. The fear of the pain of changing. Why? Because it's always been done a certain way. The ones at the top say, oh, this is how we do it. But yeah, of course they're going to say that because it lines their pockets.
But guess what? COVID-19 has changed the whole world.
Whole landscape.
And the way I personally see everything going is nobody's going to stand for that anymore. And if we have anything to do about it, or if people actually listen to us, then this is what I'm encouraging. And I'm sorry, shop owners, but for too long, you've been benefiting off the hard work and the passion of our industry. Yeah. And as Mark said it in the message as well, I'm very sorry, but passion doesn't pay your bills. Exactly. It doesn't put petrol in your car. It doesn't keep a roof over your head. You know, like, at a certain point, we all have to say enough is enough and get paid our worth. And I promise you, in the long run, your clients will appreciate it. Yeah. If you can educate them in the right way, and you can tell them, look, this is how my life is right now. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. These days I speak to my clients. For example, a kid came in to me about 6 months ago, and I was cutting his hair, and he's like, oh, like, I can't believe Jordan is like $100 for a haircut now. You know, and I was like, well, you better believe that I'm going to be there soon too. You know, like, sooner or later. Sooner or later, like, I'm going to get to that too. And then what? And he's like, oh, but who's going to cut my hair then? I was like, well, I can if you want to pay $100. Yeah. But, like, the reason why Jordan charges $100 is because he doesn't want to do as many haircuts. That's not where his time, or he felt his time is best spent. Yeah. So I explained it to this kid in as much detail as I possibly could at that time. But I said, look, why would I be standing here for an hour cutting your hair for money that isn't really doing me benefit in the long run, when I could potentially be reaching out to new clients for education? Yeah. I could be working on the future of the business, which is in turn going to make me more money in the future. The brick and mortar mentality that salon owners drive into staff, not necessarily these days, and we're not talking about anyone in particular, it has changed over the years. But everyone that I've spoken to who has had an apprenticeship has had the same thing, and it's dictatorship.
Yeah.
At a small level.
And why? And you got to look into why is that? Again, it's a numbers game.
But they stepped into that model too.
Yeah.
It's not even the salon owner's fault.
No, it's generational now.
It's they stepped into the model too, and they stepped into it because when you get offered to have a salon or something like that by a chain, it's like they dangle a shiny carrot in front of you and say, "This is it. This is the goal. This is life." And then you step into it and you realize what it is, and then you just have to embody that role.
Yeah.
And
without even questioning it.
And what's very sad is, like I said to my mom the other day, she's like, I had staff sick, this. I've had to step in and do this. I'm wrecked. I can't do it for much longer. I was like, just retire. Retire then.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can't. I was like, why can't you? She's like, I don't have a choice. It's like, we always have a choice. There's always a choice. It's just you need to get yourself to a position where you're smart enough into other areas that you can. It has to be a calculated risk. It's a risk, but it has to be calculated.
I think. Do you feel in there? There's also lack of boundaries as well. Like that's what I feel like for a state, for especially people like your mum, and I've met lots of hairdressers like that, and I've probably felt like it myself a little bit in hairdressing as well. You feel like you don't have a choice. It's like you absolutely do. You were just never taught how to set boundaries and that it was okay to set boundaries.
So this is interesting.
You know?
I love that because I tell you why I love it, because if you listen to Mark's message a minute ago about how basically from the beginning the way the infrastructure is set up of being an apprentice is kind of fucked up, because what we do is we go out and we market ourselves for free, and we build a clientele that are either used to paying nothing or very little prices. Like
there's
very
people that
little.
hunt for that stuff.
Yeah.
They're out
just to look like they're busy.
Yeah.
But what you're doing in the long run, again, is you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because then once you do get to a point where your skills and your knowledge and your expertise is at a level where you can raise your prices, you've then established and built a clientele for years that are used to paying less. Yep. So yeah, you've built a clientele that can't adapt to your scaling.
That's actually great, because I've never heard that said like that before. That's really cool.
Neither have I, and I thought it was a really good way. But that's where the fundamental issues lay, and it's in the infrastructure, and that's why there's certain things that we see within the industry. And look, since I started cutting hair, I've been able to see it. But there's all these 6-week courses and this and this and this. That's fine if you're in the brick and mortar mentality, because you just see it as a quick money grab. Yeah. But what you're actually doing is you're watering down the public's perception of our skill. So the 18-year-old or the 16-year-old or whatever age they are coming out of college and looking at hair as a professional career path, they see it then as easy. Oh, just a quick tidy up on the sides. Who's heard that? Who's heard that one? Oh, I just want to just a little bit off the bottom. Just I hate it. Does it cost less to do that?
Yeah.
If I just come and get the sides, like. But this is where we fucked it up. Not us. It's nobody listening to this. It's not our fault. It's okay. It's not our fault. It's the people. It's the people before us, and it's their fault.
Even before them.
And the people before them, and the people before them. But at a certain point, and I think now is an amazing time for us to transition out of that mentality, because we need to change our relationship with ourselves, number one, and we need to change our relationship with money and how we see it.
And I feel like the whole landscape's changed, and quite abruptly. The whole landscape of how we see business, how we see money, how we see ourselves, and how we see products I think is all changed, and we need to run with that. Yeah. But I think for a while it's been very slow, though, that transition out of the industrial age into the information age. It's been nice and steady, but boom, we've had this really abrupt thing now, and it's like we just need to look at it head on, and it's up to guys like us, the younger generations to come through and go, sorry, but this is how it is now. This is just how it is. And the reason I feel that way is people can question us on it all you want, but like, look, everything we did or everything that was done was a decision to be made. You could equally make a decision to go the opposite way. Everything was decided at some point to do it this way. And I say that about lots of things, even human life as we know it. This is probably one of 1,000 ways we could have gone. Everything is basically a decision, unless it's like related to health and biology, which we can't really change, and I mean, some you probably can, but everything else on top of it, that's why I think the way I do about hair, we decided that it was very important. We decided that, it meant so much to us. But okay, but we can also decide other things. It doesn't have to, nothing has to be the way it is. And I think a lot of my decisions come from fundamentally looking like health. Look after yourself, look after your mental health, your physical health. Then let's go from there. Mm-hmm. But it hasn't been done like that.
No.
And especially in our industry, and we teach this a lot in our academy, all of those things just been ignored. Our mental health, the client's mental health, our physical health, and the client's physical health. People will argue that. They go, Lee, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, take the hair color industry, for example. You're just putting toxic chemicals straight on somebody's skin. Straight on. Every 4 weeks. People don't realize if you're into holistic health, your skin absorbs 70% of what you put on it. Mm-hmm. So tell me that's not bad. But we won't get into that. That's another conversation. I'm not trying to tear down an industry, but that's just where we're at. I really think it's just we need a perspective shift and to rethink the bottom values, like a hierarchy of needs. What are the fundamental values, and build from there. Because health and our time and all of that stuff should not ever be cheap.
No.
Like in terms of what we get paid for what we do.
No.
Why should I have to sort of put my, posture to the side and my mental health to the side and not eating to the side and all this stuff just to give somebody a luxury novelty service, a haircut which is a made up construct? Like why is that a thing? And then get paid $20 to do it. It's so broken on so many levels.
And it's fear that doesn't.
And it's fear that stops people changing
in it.
Exactly.
It's just fear.
And I think it's been.
But it's fear and the lack of the personal development, and that's why the personal development is so important for us. Like, I feel like Area Academy. I even struggle now. Like when we get asked, "So what do you do with your business?" It's like we're not just focused on hair, because there's
no.
What we're really, the main focus of us is personal development for hair professionals. It's not we're men's like this and this. I think it's slightly going in a different direction, and that's what I was saying to you. The landscape is different now. If we keep operating on old systems, nothing's going to change. Much like the education system in general. Like how are we going to change anything? Yeah.
Well, I was having a chat to someone about it the other day. It's like, and it was interesting to listen to you speak earlier. It's about the training system needs to change, because this is not too much of a dig, I hope, but I just don't think the training system readies you for what the market demands. The market and the industry demands a lot more than what you're shown.
Especially if you want to charge appropriately.
If you want to charge, exactly. And then I had the analogy of like, well, it's like a cook at a pub, or a pub chef wanting to go and thinking they're a Michelin star chef. They're not. You've got a good 5 or 10 years ahead of you to get to Michelin star level, and there's a reason that they're at that level and they get paid at that price. Again, all right, creative cooking to a level like that again is a construct, and I guess it's subjective. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I think if we're looking at terms of like a level of excellence and where things can go, it's all justifiable. And that's where we need to be at. Like, how do we change these systems, and how do we look at the way our industry is structured and the progression of our industry and the way that it goes, and to keep this ever evolving thing? Because at the moment I feel like we're not evolving. I've said it in other podcasts. I feel like we're just tiptoeing around problems, and we just keep going round and round and round and round in circles.
Yeah.
Like,
so there needs to be, and this is where people get offended with it. Like, I not offended, but like people get protective over their choices.
Yeah.
And that's where self-development and I guess self-awareness needs to come into it. And you need to actually look at it from an outsider's point of view and just take your ego out of it for a second and stop trying to protect yourself. Yeah. You need to think, okay, well, how am I going to get out of my own way? I need to bring my own self-worth up. How do I do that? I need to gain new skills. You need to have a point of difference. But what if, like, the problem is, look, we're all so passionate. This word passion gets thrown around, and I think it's just another justifiable word that again, the bigger industries push on us.
I always like to go in there and say, but what are you passionate about? What is it really you're passionate about? You know?
Is that fear as well?
What are you really...
Is that
like,
fear?
Are you
that
just
fear?
passionate about excelling at something and making money? Like, because then that could be anything. And this is where I was saying about the training earlier. You need a deep, deep desire and passion to do hair. Like, first and foremost, that's where it starts, you know. And I don't think we should be really forcing people into our industry that don't have that desire.
Yeah,
because it can get quite, like, we're in, it can get sticky.
Yeah.
Well,
I just think, look, it's tough because to make this universal change, we all have to come together.
Yeah.
And this is where I was going with that passion thing. It's like, we're all so passionate about our jobs and this and that, but are we not passionate about getting what we deserve for ourselves? And if we were so passionate about that, everyone in the industry would want to do better for themselves and everyone else. But that's just unfortunately not the case.
No, because if it was, the landscape would look very different.
Exactly.
I think we need to be passionate about, well-functioning, abundant humans. I just don't feel that's where our industry comes from. If you think getting your hair all looking good is being a abundant, well-functioning human, I don't really agree, because that's the icing on the cake in life. I think that's the bits, like I say, the luxury, the novelty, the bits that we enjoy in life. They're the little extras. And we had this conversation earlier. Why should those things be cheap?
Yeah.
Why we're really shooting ourselves in the foot. We're undervaluing ourselves so much.
Especially barbering. I think barbering takes it to a whole new fucking level. Like, hair is one thing. Yeah. Barbering is another thing.
Do you know? I've got a theory on where that came from though. Like, if you look at pick up any history book on barbering, where it started, right? Back in the war days or whatever, even before that, men would go to the barbers once a week, every week, to get a little tidy up, probably neck and, around the ears, around the neck, and they get their hot shave. Well, did people have the money then to be paying $100 a week? Probably not. So then it had to be a justifiable price or an affordable price to come back every week. But the difference there is those barbers knew that 50 blokes are going to come back every week regardless. They are just coming back because that's just what blokes did. But I just feel like
the cost of living wasn't as much.
And the cost of living was less, and everybody probably lived much more humble lifestyles.
Well, the information wasn't there. The information wasn't available as to what is achievable.
Exactly. Then the hierarchy was probably there, because you think a lot of these barbering practices probably came from
different
England,
landscape.
Where it's like different landscape. So we just haven't adjusted with the landscape. And that's why we keep saying that. I think right now we are on one of those pivotal moments in history and time where the landscape's changing big time, and we need to be ready for it, and I think we need to run with it for everyone's benefit. Like, it probably sounds like we're having just a stab at the industry, but deep down we care about everybody in this industry. We just got to, all of us together, let's run with this, because I honestly feel like we're just undervalued, and we're suffering from it too.
We're suffering from it too. I'm working at a rate where I can only speak for myself, and I'm sure you can say the same, Lee, but I'm working at a rate where I feel like I should be making 7 figures. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm fucking nowhere near that. I'm nowhere near even 6 figures.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just sick of it. I'm just fucking over it, and there needs to be a way to change it and actually raise our standards.
Getting back to the fundamental, like, the mindset of it. Like, Reese, shout out to Reese, speak from Ruger Barbers in the UK, but he probably doesn't even remember he said this to me, but I say it to you all the time, isn't it? He's like, it was 2019 at the time, and he was like, it's 2019. We need to get out of this mindset that one man is paid this just because he's a barber, and one man is paid this just because he's this. We're all out here trying to live a good life, you know? Nobody I know wants to live a shitter life than the next guy, I certainly don't. I don't want to, I want to live a shitter life than you.
Yeah.
So I'll take less money. You can take more money. You know, who thinks like that? So that was. I just we need to start thinking like that.
I think
you know?
I think setting boundaries is really important as well within all that.
Big
like
time.
That's been something that I've been really strict on. And like, you know, yesterday was our birthday, and my missus said to me, she's like, "What are you letting go of, like, going forward? You know, from this point on?" And it's like that. Not even what I'm letting go of, but like what I'm bringing in is my boundaries, and I have to be strict and stick to my boundaries. I'm sorry, the price is the price. This is how I value my time. This is how I value the service that I provide, the information that I give, and that's just it. There's no argument to it. Like that's it. And look, if you're here and you're listening to this and you're expecting us to give you numbers and how to break down numbers and how to charge your worth, that's not what you're going to get from this conversation. You will get that on the network.
Yeah, we can take
in the business in the business pillar, because we can definitely go through all that and how you can do it, because the numbers are so subjective. Again, there's a number of determining factors that create those numbers. You can't just pull a number out of the sky. Obviously, you have to work around certain parameters that we're in, but slowly we need to start moving the needle forward.
Yeah.
And thinking a little bit more progressively. We're supposed to be in this creative and progressive industry that at its core is fucked.
It's fucked. And we teach that in the academy. Like, creative doesn't just mean what you do with something. Creative can mean thinking, moving, you know, everything that you do. So let's get creative and let's start thinking creatively and using what's in our head. Because I think a lot of us are capable of it.
Yeah.
You know, for sure. But I totally agree with you. Like, moving forward, it's all got to change.
Let's read out some of these.
Let's get stuck into some of these things.
Let's read out some of these, bro. These are good. And I think we'll only get into a few of them because it might take up too much time. But these are some of the responses that we got from my story the other day. And there's some really good points in them. And I think I'll read the message, and then we can just elaborate a little bit, and then we'll move to the next one. So this one, somebody responded to me and said, drilling deeper again, barbers have put themselves in this position. Number one, because we accepted that as our worth for reasons unknown. Number two, we haven't expanded the overall experience or service to levels worthy of a pay increase. Number three, we're not financially literate enough to understand what they're getting that they're getting into a non-sustainable to build a flowing life of abundance. So basically what that means is we're not financially literate enough to understand that what we're actually doing is setting ourselves up wrong by taking the cheap clients at the beginning. Number four, they don't actively hunt and prospect their clients in the right way. And the final nail in the coffin, they're not willing to pay for education or ask for help or find the right mentors in the right areas to help nourish their trade to a six-figure salary, which is and should be the ground floor for somebody with all of the above points in check. Mm-hmm. So
that's really interesting, actually.
And it's a psychological, basically. It's predominantly a psychological shift that needs to happen to make the skill set shift. Yeah,
that's provoked a lot of things in my head. But I think for me, I realised this early on. You know, I realised I wasn't going to make a fortune out of hair unless I became one of those guys who was numbers focused and had multiple salons, right? So whether I've been an injustice to the industry or not, I don't really know. But like, it's like when we do staff appraisals, right? One of the questions on there is, how much do you want to earn? That's probably not the right question to ask me, because I just want financial freedom or have my time back, basically. I know through my own learnings and my own research that that's going to take multiple streams of income. So I look at my income that I make from cutting hair as one stream. So I've been fortunate enough over the last 10 years, 20 to 30 years old, that I've diversified and invested my money elsewhere. So I don't necessarily see myself relying on cutting hair behind the chair forever. Now that's one way of getting yourself out of that mess, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we should charge less. And I always say I want to be paid the most amount of money I can for the value I bring about most things in life. So that's quite interesting there.
Yeah.
And I think it spins your perspective on how you see hair.
And that's coming from a shop owner.
Right.
Somebody who's has international experience working with brands. He's been at every level. He's run expos.
Yeah.
He's done everything.
Interesting. One thing I'd like to see for people hear from people listening is cutting hair behind a chair your only income? That's an interesting one too. Because if it is your only income, then you need to be bumping that as much as you can.
Yeah.
Because it's scary. Even I read Money Mag even 3 years ago, 4 years ago maybe. There was a thing about superannuation here in Australia. That's kind of the equivalent to what we would have as a pension in the UK, pension fund. Superannuation fund. You're going to need to live the life you live right now. I think it's roughly you're going to need about $3 million to live out from retirement age to death. Which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't know many people that are on track to have $3 million by the time they retire. You know what I mean? So I realised that and I was like, whoa, shit. I'm definitely not going to get that from cutting hair behind the chair. So I need to diversify and make my money work for me in other ways.
And you know what's another interesting spin on the whole thing as well? Just something's popped into my mind there.
Yeah.
The clients that are coming to us, we can assume that most of our clients make that average wage per year.
Yeah.
Somewhere between 70 to 100k, and they're not willing to pay us more for a haircut.
Exactly.
So do you really want to be around those people who undervalue you?
Exactly.
Would you be in that's a toxic relationship?
How do you feel in the salon? I just have this weird, maybe it's because I've been in the hair industry too long. I have this weird thing. I just assume that most people I come into contact with just earn more money than me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I
But
go into it and I think this guy just probably makes more money than I do.
There's been times in my career where I've felt so much like a service provider
Yeah.
that I may as well have the stereotype of somebody who just cleans somebody's house.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I've gone to people's houses to do their hair,
Yeah.
and they just treat me as if, like, you know, they'll just pick up my underpants off the floor there as well while you're at it, you know? Just that mentality alone, like, yeah, I just feel like, why are we there?
Yeah.
You know, and like there's a couple of people who come into our shop and they pay less because they get mates rates and this and that, and like because they're friends with the owner, and like, not Jordan by the way, but friends with the owner, and it's like, hang on a second, like why do we have to be the ones that suffer for this?
Yeah.
And I can't wait until the day where I'm fucking making that salary.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be actively pushing to change that for myself, and that's what we're trying to encourage in everyone listening to this. You have to be the one to actively change it for yourself.
Yeah.
Value your own time. How do you value your own time? Gain more skills, work harder,
and I think gain more insight into life.
Yeah, and it's not just, when I say gain more skills, I'm not saying come to Area Academy and learn how to do hair.
Yeah.
Go and do business courses.
Everything.
Do other personal development courses. Make yourself a more, because this is the way the world has positioned us right now on social media and stuff like that. Is we're all personal brands.
Yep.
We're walking around as a personal brand. Every single person in the world.
Yep.
What value can you bring? And the value you can bring is what you're going to be able to charge.
Yeah.
Influencers are the perfect example of it. People who get paid by brands to essentially just represent their brand.
Yeah. Sell their clothes.
It's
What goes that
but
do
without
for anyone?
but without selling their clothes.
Yeah.
So the better that we can market ourselves as hairdressers or barbers or whatever it is you're doing in the hair industry, because that's just they're just two of the mini markets within the hair industry. Whatever it is that you can do within that to market yourself in the best way possible, you're going to drive up the interest in your brand. How can, like, Gucci charge $500 for a t-shirt and AS Color can charge $20 and it's essentially the same quality?
Yeah.
Because of perception.
Yep.
Brand perception, and how you place yourself and how you value yourself comes off a lot.
Yep.
You know, how do rappers do well in their careers? Because they value themselves. They have the
gas
confidence. They
themselves
believe
up so much.
Yeah, but enough, and they drill it in enough that they create this perception and belief in people.
Yeah. And I think that it's powerful then when it is backed up and it's real. You know, like I feel like that's thinking about, you know, me having that mindset of like, oh, maybe everybody I come into contact with just gets paid more than me. I think that might, like unconsciously have been a driver of why I've been.
But maybe that's why it keeps people where they are.
Yeah,
because you feel like you're lesser in society.
Yeah, and unconsciously, I think. But for me, it's been a driver for the hunger for knowledge. Now I feel like I can hold a conversation with most people, no matter what they do.
Yeah,
there's a level of something I can talk about.
Yeah,
and that for me, I feel like that drives up my value, and like and then that spins off. That's a whole new perspective. What's completely, if we get back to human sort of mental health, it's meaningful interaction. If I can have these meaningful connections and interactions, that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
So there's benefits to all this stuff. It may sound a bit like woo-woo and jargon. They were like, oh yeah, do all this personal development stuff, but I just think it pays, and why not?
Well, how else are you going to have the confidence? Confidence comes from knowledge in a way, and experience.
Yeah.
And like, you have to do the work in order to get that.
And sometimes just having your hair done and having pink hair and looking glamorous and having the best face frame and this, that, whatever you want, best fade, that's just borrowed confidence.
Yeah.
You're now wearing a coat of armor, which is borrowed confidence. And when it's backed up with real confidence, and you can just keep backing it up, conversation this, boom, yep, got knowledge here, it's just,
yeah.
I think that's how we all move forward.
And I feel like getting into other avenues and actually exploring like what we're doing now with the academy and where it's going next is, I'm ready for conversations with anyone in any walk of life, because I know what I bring to the table.
Yep.
And it's not about knowing everything. You don't have to know everything.
No.
That's the beauty of it. But own not knowing everything.
And like for me lately, like just this lockdown's been pretty incredible for me. Like my motivation is on fire at the moment.
Yeah, it's brought me to new levels of mindset completely.
Yeah, because I'm exercising those bits of my mind, like trying new things, doing this, doing that, learning new things. I mean, I'm motivated by learning. I love that. So for me to be able to try all these new,
we're not
things,
just oiling the machine.
Yeah, and even within our own business, trying to learn to do things for ourselves, and it's just motivation levels through the roof. But there are plenty of people out there who will just sit back and say, "Oh no, I can't do that," or "Oh no, that's not what I do," and just won't do it.
Yeah.
And you just stay right there.
That's it.
But that's also fine.
That's fine too. Everyone will get to the point where they'll realise it, though, and they'll be ready. And this information will be there for them if they want it.
But it's a classic Gary Vee thing. He says like, but if that's fine, you accept your reality, but you just can't complain about it. Yeah. In the future, you can't complain because you chose to be there. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, spending the money on the Nikes, but then complaining you're broke. It was like, you can't have both.
Yeah.
Don't.
You can't have your cake and eat it.
Don't do the thing and then complain. If you find yourself in a place of like discomfort and you find yourself thinking, "Oh, that's not good," or complaining more than you're not, then maybe it's time to start leveling up.
That's it.
Next one.
Should we move on to the next thing? Now this one's interesting because it's from a friend of mine who's actually like a life coach. So he's not in the hair industry, which is a great perspective because it's just looking at how to value ourselves in general. So he said, there will always be the ones that stay in the comfort zone. However, raising your prices is a must. Higher prices usually attract better quality clients. Clients value your service even more. You'll up your game and the clients will get better results in turn. And you'll meet their needs and enhance your lifestyle as you free up your time. For example, if you want to make 100k a year, cut 1,000 haircuts at $100 or 2,000 haircuts at $50. Raise your standards, be unique, own your story, raise your prices, and over deliver with value every day of the week. So essentially, everything is going to raise. If you up your prices, the initial thought is, I'm going to lose people.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose this. Everything's going to go down. Yes, that's part of the growing pains. You might lose people, but you need to start doing some figures, like doing some maths. Like I've spoken to a couple of hairdressers recently who recently went out on their own, and they've only at a certain point in your career, you'll start doing some calculations as to like what you're bringing into your salon and what you're gaining, what you're earning. And again, salon owners are going to hate this, but ultimately it's for the best for everyone.
Yeah.
This is for the best for all of us going forward in the long run. Yes, it might be a growing pain. Yes, you might be protecting the shop that you put a lot of money into. But the industry's broken. And if you can't see it, then you just fucking can't see it. Like if you can't see it after listening to this, it's I don't know.
I don't know how to help you.
I don't know how to help you.
But I love what that message was saying right there. You know, it's the value delivered. You know, I think Andrew does hair kind of structures his days and weeks and months in that way. You know, he's like, right, because he owns a hair product brand as well, so he doesn't primarily need to be behind the chair. But he thinks, okay, well, I've got this coming up and I've got this coming up. Looks at the month, he thinks, right, I need to make roughly this much money. I'm going to do X amount of haircuts, charge this amount of money. You know, and it's the same thing about looking at your life and your whole career.
It's like how to fill up your cup.
What do I want, and how am I going to get there?
Yeah,
it's a structure and a reverse engineering process to it. And again, like I said before, it's all choices.
It's like, how much do we need? How much do you want?
And how much do you need, exactly.
And then there's a difference between how much you need and how much you want. So it's like, we all know how much it costs for us to fill up our car. That's something he says. But we don't know how much that we need to sustain our life.
Yeah, exactly. And this is it. And I just think it's a great way to think about it. Yeah. And again, somebody say, oh, well, but I can't reach the 6-7 figure mark per year because, you know, haircuts only are this much money. It's like, yeah, but that was a choice and a decision. And it can be chosen to do in a different way as well.
If the quality, you know, and if you believe that the quality is there and you can prove that.
Yeah. And I think one of the key factors here, which keeps coming back in my mind, there's a couple of things. Every time you say one of these facts, or every time we bring one of these up, there's this feeling inside of me which just feels the friction. But who's the friction with? The client. We have to teach the clients. Yeah, we have to.
They have to know. Because
if they don't know, how are we ever going to? Because we're going to. If we don't teach the clients, we'll still be having this conversation in 10 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. We'll still be talking about it.
We may as well be a charity, like if we don't do that, because it's not. We can't do that, you know.
No.
You need to pay. Like you need to get paid for what you're providing in worth, you know, like in value. Because value, if there's no like, it's like same thing with charging for education. Like you can't just be giving away that stuff for nothing, because think about the money that you've invested into learning, and then you're relaying that in a different way. So you need to think about the money that you've invested into your education and what you've done over the years to pay for yourself to get to the level where you're at. And then, you know, there's also the value, like you're almost doing somebody an injustice by charging them a little amount, because when they come to your course or they come to whatever, they're not going to be paying attention. There's no skin in the game. If there's no skin in the game, there's going to be no value there. Like if I know if I pay $1,000 to do something, I'm going to pay attention to that and I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can.
Yep.
That's where the value comes from it.
Well, if you pay $100, you can be like, nah.
If you pay 100, you'll go and you'll be
maybe
just,
it's not that good then.
Nah, and then you're again, the perception of it goes down and the value of it goes down. What you actually take away in terms of value and add into what you already do, it goes way down.
Yeah.
And that's what and people undercharge themselves, like they undervalue themselves to the point where they're never happy, because they're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm charging my worth, but I can't because this person is going to feel this way. Well, fuck that person. They don't have to take it.
Yeah. They need to change their mindset. They're not in a growth. They're not in a growth mindset and an abundance mindset.
Sorry.
And they don't want to see the best for you.
No.
Yeah. And that's I think that's just where it has to change for sure.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because look, there's probably a lot of buttons being pushed here, but like, man, it's just fucking upsetting. That's all it is. Because this, and moving on to the next one, this goes nicely and the reason why it's so upsetting is because it's so close to home for me. Because I heard from my own mother who's had a salon for 30 years and nothing's changed. And it leads nicely into this. So somebody here who's written this comment, I won't name any names again just because there's a few references to names here, said that his boss started cutting hair 22 years ago and he was being paid $5.80 an hour as an apprentice. Now I think that currently stands at $8.50, and if you're of a mature age it's $11.50, and at least that's what he was on at his shop when he was an apprentice. So he's been cutting hair for 8 years now, next March, and he says that that's an increase of $3 over 15 years. you know, in terms of like the $5.80 to whatever, that's an increase of 2 or 20 cents a year. So like 20 cents a year more per hour. Are we going to stand for that? Are we going to stand for being less than average? No, because look at the state of the world now, and like one of the things that people are giving out about the most, maybe we just see it because we're in the industry, but everybody needs a haircut and everyone's desperate for a haircut. Now is the perfect time, if you're in Melbourne, if you're in Sydney, when you go back to the shop, raise your fucking standards. I'm sorry, raise your standards for yourself
and your value point.
And when I say standards, I don't mean the standards of how you're cutting hair. We don't care how you cut hair. We don't look at people's haircuts anymore and judge, oh, that fades a bit. Oh, we don't care about that.
Because again,
the value that you provide to that person, our clients don't really even know what they're looking at when it comes to that stuff. They really don't. And I used to cut hair at a level when I was back in Ireland that was not near the level where I cut now in terms of quality, and my clients were over the moon. And I had a thing pop up the other day, a reminder of like this day 4 years ago, you know, and it was a haircut, and my analytical eye went straight to it because it's my own work. And I was like,
whoa,
this guy at that time would have loved that haircut, loved it. But now I'm looking at it, picking it apart because it's mine. But we don't look at other people's haircuts like that when we're encouraging them to up their prices. We're looking at you to realize your own potential, realize your own value and power, and
just as a human being,
put your foot down. Like, stop being such a fucking pushover.
That's the world now, though. We've lost our backbone, man. We've lost.
Stop being such a pushover. Like, it's like, and you know what? We have to take our own advice in this, and this is where it's going to get very difficult going forward for me. A little insight into what's going to happen in my eyes now. I haven't spoken to Jordan about this yet, but in my eyes, I'm going to be charging my worth when I go back. And if people don't want to pay it, that's totally fine. An hour of my time is worth more to work on other things.
Yeah.
And that's the expansion and the growth mindset that you need to have. Are you going to be in an abundance mindset? Or are you going to be in a lack mindset?
Yeah.
As a barber? Because if you stay the way you're going now, and I know for a fact, going off of anyone on my story the other day who said that they don't want to get paid more, or that they don't want to
upset anyone,
or they just want to do it to keep other people happy, this and that, is lying. You're lying to yourself, and your ego is the one speaking.
But that's their own work they need to do, 100%.
That's
look,
it.
I think we realise that quality of a haircut is so subjective too. Getting back to what you said, most clients don't really know what they're looking at. You know, you can just get one part of the haircut right and they're like, oh, it's the best ever. You're like, is it? Yeah. I'm sure I've done it better on someone else, you know.
Yeah.
But they only know what they know, and most of them don't really know what they're looking at.
And it's perception. I've seen it over the years with what I have done with my career over the years since starting at Area. Just from doing things outside of the salon and posting them on my social media, I now have justifiable clause to be able to raise my price.
Yeah.
Because people can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
Because now I'm no longer just the person who just does that.
Exactly.
Diversify your skills if you want to charge more.
Yeah.
Diversify what you do. I could be doing education today, but here I am cutting your hair.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And look, I had two more points on my phone there, but we've already kind of covered all them topics throughout the conversation, so there's no need to get back into it again. But it's a real pain point for people, this topic in general. And look, I guess there's more we could say about it.
I'm sure we can have another conversation about it, and
there's more we can say about it, and there is more ways of calculating it and getting into the technicality aspect of it. And we're not going to do this on the podcast because it's just not the place for it.
No, and that's very individual stuff.
It's very individual stuff,
shop to shop, person to person.
But we will put that on our platform,
and
that's where the value will be taken from it. Yeah. And if you're willing to invest in yourself and take some of that value, by all means, please join and become a member. And we'll continue to give value away and over deliver on everything that we do. Like, we're not going to say we won't give you everything here today, like, because why would we? again, we would be going against ourselves. We'd be shooting ourselves in the foot. Because we have so much more to give. People probably look at us and think, geez, how could you be giving away all that information, this and this, putting up these free videos, putting up this. Because we know that we're moving on to the next thing. There's always going to be something more, and there's always more information to be unfolded. Like, it's just up to you to dig it out.
That's it. Realise your own power. Realising your potential.
But so, I think that's a nice place to kind of wrap it up today.
Send it there.
Now, that was a lot. There's a lot covered there.
Yeah.
So, go back, re-listen to it. This one will be an interesting one for us to re-listen to.
We'd love to hear your feedback as well. Leave some comments.
Yeah.
Send some DMs.
I think
we can open up some dialogue.
If you don't want to put a comment online for everyone to read, just send us a message, because it gets personal. Most of my messages that I got last week about this topic, I answered with a voice note, because I was really trying to gain as much from all angles before doing a podcast like this, because I would say 99.9% of people agreed, and then you always have that one person who just has something to say, but they're really just protecting their factory, essentially. It's just protecting their factory. So we would love to hear the insights, and we are fully aware always that there's no right and wrong in anything. We're not saying that there's wrong, but yeah, ultimately we do believe that the system is fucked, and it's up to us if we want to change it. So that's why, again, I think we said this in one of the last podcasts. I think it was the last one or a couple of podcasts ago. You have to be the change you want to see. How do you expect anything to change if you keep doing things the same way? It's the definition of insanity. So thanks for listening.
Sponsors.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, shout out to the sponsors of the podcast: Jack Reed Foundation, CBD Culture. We'll definitely need some CBD after doing that conversation. Camera ourselves down. And Tapped by Hatch, making it easier for us to actually charge more, bringing our perception up in the eye of the consumer. So stay tuned for some of that consumer content and stuff coming soon as well. I think that's something that we're going to be really interested in creating and delivering. Again, like we said, it's going to be beneficial for both the consumer and for the professional, because it's good to see it from all sides. But yeah, excited.
Leave it there.
Alright, let's leave it there. Let's see you on episode 7.